Admiral Zexithara stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the endless stars. His blue skin glowed softly in the dim light, and his four eyes moved independently as he watched the holographic display floating before him. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, and Zexithara had served for the last 300 of those years. The Empire was perfect. Every planet, every species, every system obeyed the throne network. This amazing technology connected all Zephyrian commanders across the galaxy through quantum links. When one admiral gave an order, every other commander knew about it instantly. When one ship was destroyed, every other captain felt the loss. The network made them unstoppable. Zexithara's ship, the Dominion's Edge, was 15 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire moons. Around him, a fleet of 200 similar vessels waited for orders. They had just finished, bringing another primitive species into the Empire. The green-skinned beings from Kaltor Prime had tried to resist for exactly 6 hours before surrendering. Admiral, his communications officer, spoke with the melodic voice typical of Zephyrians. The Throne Network has detected a new species. Zexithara's interest peaked. New species were rare these days. Most of the galaxy had already been conquered or destroyed. Show me their location. A three-dimensional map appeared in the air. Small yellow star sat in what the Empire called the outer spiral. Around it, several planets orbited peacefully. The third planet from the star glowed blue and green. They call themselves humans, the officer continued. They live on the third planet of their system, which they call Earth. Our sensors detected their first faster-than-light travel attempt 3 days ago. Zexithara nodded. This was standard procedure. The Empire watched for new species to develop space travel. Once they could move between stars, they became either useful or dangerous. The Empire preferred to deal with them before they became dangerous. What do we know about their technology? Zexithara asked. Another officer, this one with the silver, markings of a science specialist, stepped forward. Very primitive, Admiral. Their ships are crude metal constructions powered by chemical reactions. Their weapons appear to be simple projectile and energy systems. They have no psychic abilities that we can detect. Population? Approximately 8 billion on their home world. They appear to be divided into multiple competing groups called nations. They have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire recorded history. Zexithara almost laughed. A species that fought itself was always easy to conquer. The Empire would offer some of the human groups advanced technology in exchange for helping to conquer the others. Once the planet was subdued, they would eliminate the collaborators as well. It was a pattern that had worked thousands of times before. Any signs of advanced technology we should be concerned about? He asked. The science officer shook his head. Nothing significant. They have basic computer systems, primitive robots, and simple space stations. Their most powerful weapons could barely damage our smallest escort ships. Perfect. This would be another quick victory for the Empire. Zexithara had overseen 47 such conquests in his career. Most species surrendered immediately when they saw the power of the Zephyrian fleet. Those that resisted were usually destroyed within a few hours. Prepare the standard integration fleet, Zexithara ordered. 200 heavy cruisers, 50 assault carriers, and 10 dreadnoughts. We will offer them the choice to join the Empire or face extinction. As his fleet prepared to move, Zexithara connected his mind to the throne network. Instantly, he felt the presence of thousands of other Zephyrian commanders across the galaxy. Their thoughts and experiences flowed through him like a warm river. He sensed Admiral Vorthin conquering a mining colony near the galactic core. Commander Hexilla was managing the construction of a new fortress world. Captain Zealoth was hunting down the last rebels from a failed uprising. The network shared all knowledge instantly. Every battle tactic, every successful strategy, every lesson learned by any Zephyrian commander became available to all others immediately. This collective intelligence made the Empire unbeatable. No enemy could surprise them because the network had seen every possible form of resistance. Through the network, Zexathara filed his report about the humans. Within seconds, every commander in the galaxy knew about Earth and its primitive inhabitants. Several admirals shared their amusement at the humans' backward technology. Others offered advice based on similar conquests of divided species. The response was unanimous. This would be easy. Zexathara's fleet entered hyperspace, traveling faster, then light toward the small yellow star. The journey would take 3 days. During that time, long-range sensors would gather more information about human capabilities and weaknesses. As they traveled, reports came back through the network. The humans had detected their approach. Instead of preparing for surrender or mounting a desperate defense, they were doing something unexpected. They were talking to each other. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are detecting massive increases in communication traffic throughout the human system. Every nation, every military force, every scientific institution appears to be sharing information at an unprecedented rate." Zexathara was mildly curious. "Are they calling for help from other species?" "No, Admiral. They appear to be sharing information only among themselves. Technical specifications, military strategies, scientific research. Everything is being transmitted openly between groups that were enemies just days ago. This was unusual but not concerning. Desperate species often tried to unite when faced with superior force. It never worked. The Empire had conquered unified species many times before. Unity without power was meaningless. On the second day of travel, the reports became more interesting. The humans were not just sharing information, they were combining their resources in ways the Empire had never seen before. Competing corporations were giving away their most secret technologies. Enemy nations were placing their military forces under joint command. Scientists were abandoning years of research to work on projects they had learned about only hours before. "They are acting as if they are already a single species," the science officer reported with confusion in his voice. Zexathara accessed the throne network to consult with other admirals. The collective experience of the Empire had never encountered anything quite like this. Species usually needed centuries to develop the level of cooperation the humans had achieved in 2 days. It was interesting, but ultimately pointless. On the third day, as the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system, Zexathara received the final intelligence reports. The humans had somehow managed to coordinate their entire species. Every spaceship, every space station, every orbital platform was now under unified command. They had also accelerated their technology development at an impossible rate, sharing discoveries and improvements across their entire civilization in real time. Still, their ships remained primitive. Their weapons were weak. Their defenses were laughable. The Empire's overwhelming superiority remained absolute. Zexathara opened a communication channel to Earth, broadcasting on all frequencies in the human languages his computers had analyzed. "Primitive beings of Earth," his voice carried across space, translated into dozens of human languages simultaneously. "I am Admiral Zexathara of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has developed space travel and must now choose its future. Submit to the Empire and serve as a client species, or resist and face complete extinction. You have 1 hour to decide." The response came back immediately, broadcast from Earth in a single unified voice that somehow represented all of humanity. "We choose to resist." Zexathara almost pitied them. In 1 hour, their brave but futile defiance would be over, and the Empire would have another conquered world to exploit. He gave the order to advance. He had no idea that he had just started a war that would end 10,000 years of Zephyrian dominance in exactly 10 minutes. The Zephyrian fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal death. Admiral Zexathara watched from his command bridge as his ships formed perfect attack formations. 200 heavy cruisers spread out in a line 20,000 kilometers wide. Behind them, 50 assault carriers prepared to launch fighter squadrons. At the center, 10 massive dreadnoughts powered up their reality-warping weapons. Each Zephyrian ship was a masterpiece of technology that had been refined over thousands of years. The smallest cruiser carried shields that could deflect asteroid impacts and weapons that could crack planets. The dreadnoughts were mobile fortresses, each one capable of destroying Earth's entire space fleet single-handedly. Through the throne network, Zexathara felt the confidence of his fellow commanders. Admiral Kreshvar had conquered a similar primitive species just last year using only 50 ships. Commander Eviloth suggested that a single dreadnought would be sufficient to force human surrender. The collective wisdom of the Empire agreed. This would be over quickly. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "human forces are moving to intercept us." Zexathara looked at the holographic display showing the approaching human ships. There were perhaps 300 vessels of various sizes. Most looked like converted cargo ships or mining platforms hastily fitted with weapons. A few appeared to be purpose-built warships, but they were tiny compared to Zephyrian cruisers. "Laughable," Zexathara muttered. "Their entire fleet has less firepower than one of our escort squadrons." But something about the human formation bothered him. Instead of clustering together for mutual protection or spreading out to avoid concentrated fire, the human ships were arranged in a pattern he had never seen before. Small groups of vessels formed clusters throughout three-dimensional space, with each cluster positioned to support multiple other clusters. It was unnecessarily complex and tactically meaningless. "Open communication with their fleet commander," Zexathara ordered. A human face appeared on his screen. The being had pale skin, short brown hair, and two eyes that stared directly at him, without the fear he expected to see. Behind the human, Zexathara could see a command center filled with humans working frantically at control stations. "I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said in a calm voice. "Withdraw from our system immediately, or face the consequences." Zexathara almost laughed. "Human, you are addressing Admiral Zexathara of the Zephyrian Empire. Your 300 primitive ships face the finest fleet in the galaxy. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "We said withdraw. This is your final warning." The arrogance was astounding. Zexathara decided to give the humans a demonstration of real power. "Target their lead formation. Destroy 10 ships." Energy beams lanced out from his cruisers, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a small moon. The beams struck the human ships exactly as intended. 10 vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light and expanding debris clouds. Zexathara expected this show of force to break human morale. Instead, something impossible happened. The remaining human ships immediately moved to fill the gaps left by their destroyed comrades. More shocking still, the explosions of the destroyed ships seemed to provide covering fire for other human vessels to advance. "Admiral," his sensor operator said with confusion in his voice, "the humans are using their own destroyed ships as weapons. The debris from the explosions is striking our forward shields." This made no tactical sense. Ships were valuable resources. No rational species used them as ammunition. Yet the humans seemed to have planned for their own ships to be destroyed and turned those losses into advantages. "Sir," another officer reported, "we are detecting massive data transmissions between all human vessels. They appear to be sharing real-time tactical information, technical specifications, and damage assessments at a rate our computers can barely track." Through the throne network, Zexathara consulted with other admirals. No one had seen anything like this level of information sharing during combat. The Zephyrian network allowed commanders to share thoughts and strategies, but the humans were transmitting detailed technical data about Zephyrian weapons and defenses to every ship in their fleet simultaneously. "Begin the main assault," Zexathara ordered. Destroy half their fleet. That should convince them to surrender. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with devastating effect. Hundreds of energy beams and missile salvos tore through space toward the human ships. The primitive human vessels had no chance of surviving such an onslaught, except they did not try to survive. Instead, they did something that horrified every Zephyrian commander. They rammed directly into the incoming fire. Human ships accelerated at maximum power toward the Zephyrian weapons, allowing themselves to be destroyed but using their explosions to detonate missiles prematurely and diffuse energy beams. Other human vessels flew directly into the paths of Zephyrian fire, sacrificing themselves to protect ships behind them. Within minutes, 100 human ships had been destroyed. But their sacrifices had allowed the remaining 200 ships to close the distance to the Zephyrian fleet. Impossible, Zexathera whispered. They are using suicide tactics as standard strategy. What happened next shattered every assumption about primitive species. The human ships that reached the Zephyrian lines did not try to engage in conventional combat. Instead, they rammed directly into Zephyrian vessels. A converted human cargo ship, its hull glowing from weapon impacts, slammed into the side of a Zephyrian cruiser. The cargo ship was vaporized instantly, but its explosion tore a massive hole in the cruiser's hull. Before the cruiser could recover, 2 more human ships dove into the breach and detonated their reactors inside the Zephyrian vessel. This pattern repeated throughout the battle zone. Human ships sacrificed themselves in coordinated attacks that used their destruction as weapons. Each successful ramming attack was instantly analyzed by the surviving human vessels, who adjusted their tactics based on what they learned from their comrades' deaths. "Admiral," his communications officer said in a shaking voice, "we are losing ships. The humans they are learning from each attack and improving their effectiveness." Zexathara could not believe what he was seeing. In 30 minutes of combat, the humans had destroyed 12 Zephyrian cruisers using nothing but ramming attacks and improvised weapons. Their own losses were severe. Over half their fleet was gone, but they continued fighting with the same terrifying determination. Through the Throne Network, he felt the shock and confusion of his fellow commanders. The collective wisdom of the Empire had never encountered a species that treated individual lives as ammunition. The psychological effect on Zephyrian crews was devastating. Every time they destroyed a human ship, they knew it was probably part of a deliberate human plan to kill more Zephyrians. "Sir," his science officer reported, "the humans are analyzing our weapon frequencies and shield configurations in real time. They are modifying their equipment during the battle." This was the final impossibility. The humans were reverse engineering Zephyrian technology while being shot at. Their primitive computers were somehow processing weapons data, shield frequencies, and tactical information fast enough to make modifications during active combat. Human ship that had been struck by a Zephyrian disruptor beam suddenly fired back with a weapon that used the same disruptor frequency. Another human vessel activated shields that matched Zephyrian defensive patterns. The humans were stealing technology and improving it faster than the Zephyrians could react. "All ships fall back to secondary positions," Zexathara ordered. "Regroup and prepare for concentrated bombardment." But as his fleet began to withdraw, Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen again. The human looked tired, but not defeated. Behind him, Zexathera could see human technicians working frantically with equipment that looked suspiciously like modified Zephyrian technology. "Admiral Zexathera," Chen said calmly, "you have one more chance to withdraw. Leave our system now, or we will show you what happens when humans get serious." Zexathara stared at the human in disbelief. The primitive species had lost more than half their fleet and were facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy, yet their commander was still making threats. "Human," Zexathera replied, "you have seen only a fraction of our power. Surrender, now or watch your world burn." Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time since the battle began, Zexathara felt a chill of genuine fear. "Admiral," Chen said, "we tried to warn you. You should have listened." The transmission ended, and Zexathara realized with growing horror that the humans had been holding back. Everything they had shown so far, the suicide tactics, the rapid adaptation, the impossible cooperation, had been a test. The humans had been learning about Zephyrian technology and tactics while sacrificing their own ships to gather information. Now they were ready to show what they could really do. Admiral Zexathara tried to make sense of what was happening to his fleet. In the hour since combat began, his tactical displays had turned into chaos. Red warning symbols covered every screen as human ships attacked in patterns that defied all military logic. The Zephyrian fleet still held overwhelming superiority in firepower and technology. His remaining ships could destroy Earth's biosphere in minutes if he chose. But the humans were not fighting a conventional battle. They were fighting like nothing the Empire had ever encountered. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with fear in his voice. "Human Attack Group 7 just rammed the cruiser Eternal Victory. But instead of exploding on impact, they somehow penetrated the hull and are fighting inside the ship." Zexathara watched in horror as tiny human figures in spacesuits moved through the corridors of his cruiser. The humans had modified there, ramming ships to punch through Zephyrian hulls without destroying themselves. Now they were engaging in close combat inside Zephyrian vessels. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our internal defenses should kill any boarders instantly." "Sir, the humans appear to have analyzed our internal security systems during their previous ramming attacks. They know exactly where our automated defenses are positioned and how to disable them." Through the throne network, Zexathara felt the panic of Captain Yuendal aboard the Eternal Victory. The human boarders were small and fast, moving through maintenance tunnels and service passages that Zephyrian defenders could not fit through. They were placing explosives at critical system junctions with surgical precision. The Eternal Victory's main reactor went offline. Then life support failed on 12 decks. The ship's weapon systems began firing randomly as humans reprogrammed the targeting computers. Within 10 minutes, the cruiser was dead in space, its crew evacuating in escape pods. But the nightmare was just beginning. As soon as the human boarders captured the cruiser's computer core, they transmitted its entire contents to every other human ship in the fleet. Technical specifications, tactical protocols, weapons frequencies, shield configurations, everything the Empire considered classified was now in human hands. "All ships, implement randomized defense patterns," Zexathara ordered desperately. "Change weapon frequencies every 30 seconds. Rotate shield configurations continuously." His orders went out through the throne network, reaching every ship simultaneously. The collective wisdom of the Empire kicked in, with experienced commanders, sharing countermeasures against boarding tactics. Within minutes, every Zephyrian vessel had adapted its defenses. The humans adapted faster. "Sir," his science officer reported with disbelief, "the humans are modifying their attack patterns in real time. They are somehow predicting our defensive changes before we implement them." Zexathara watched his tactical display as human ships adjusted their approach vectors moments before his cruisers changed course. Human weapons switched frequencies seconds before Zephyrian shields rotated to new configurations. It was as if the humans could read Zephyrian minds. Then he realized the terrifying truth. They were reading Zephyrian minds, not through psychic powers, but through pure analytical intelligence. The humans had captured enough Zephyrian technology to intercept and decode throne network transmissions. They were listening to every order, every tactical discussion, every strategic decision the Empire made. "Cut all network communications," Zexathara commanded. "Go to local command authority only." But damage was already done. For over an hour, the humans had been listening to the most secure communications in the galaxy. They had heard tactical assessments, technical discussions, and strategic plans. More importantly, they had learned how the throne network itself functioned. Without the network, Zephyrian coordination collapsed. Ships that had operated as a single unified force suddenly became isolated units. Commanders who had relied on collective wisdom for centuries were forced to make independent decisions. The Empire's greatest strength had become a vulnerability. The humans exploited this weakness immediately. Their remaining ships, now numbering fewer than 100, split into dozens of small groups and attacked the Zephyrian fleet from every direction simultaneously. Each group used different tactics, different weapons, and different approaches. The Zephyrian commanders, cut off from each other, could not coordinate their responses. "Restore network communications," Zexathara ordered. "We need coordination, more than security." The moment the throne network came back online, human attack patterns shifted again. They had spent the communication blackout analyzing how Zephyrian coordination worked. Now they began targeting specific ships based on their roles in the network hierarchy. A swarm of small human craft, barely larger than fighters, descended on the dreadnought Infinite Majesty. The massive ship's weapons were designed to destroy other capital ships, not tiny, fast-moving targets. The humans flew through the weapon fields like insects, too small and numerous to track effectively. "The humans are using our own size against us," Captain Melthera reported from the Infinite Majesty. "Our weapons cannot target anything smaller than a cruiser without risking damage to nearby friendly vessels." The small human ships attached themselves to the dreadnought's hull like parasites. Instead of trying to penetrate the armor, they began tapping into external sensor arrays and communication systems. Within minutes, they had gained access to the ship's computer network. But they did not try to take control of the dreadnought. Instead, they turned it into a relay station for their own communications. The humans were using Zephyrian ships to coordinate attacks against other Zephyrian ships. "This is impossible," Zexathara whispered. "They are using our own vessels as weapons against us." The situation deteriorated rapidly. Human hackers, working through captured Zephyrian computer systems, began sending false orders through the throne network. Zephyrian ships received commands to change course, alter formations, and target coordinates that led them into traps. Admiral Kex Yuan, aboard the cruiser Stellar Dominance, reported that his navigation systems were showing false sensor readings. His ship was displaying the locations of human vessels where none existed, while completely failing to detect real human ships approaching from his blind spots. Commander Trelvas found his weapon systems locked onto other Zephyrian vessels instead of human targets. When he tried to fire on a human bomber, his disruptor beams struck a friendly cruiser instead. The humans had turned the Empire's own technology into chaos. Ships fired on their allies while real enemies slipped past their defenses. Navigation. Systems led vessels into asteroid fields or collision courses with other Zephyrian ships. Communication arrays broadcast human propaganda instead of tactical updates. "Admiral," his communications officer said in a panicked voice, "we are receiving surrender demands from the humans." "Show me," Zexathara commanded. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again. Behind him, the human command center was now filled with Zephyrian computer equipment that his technicians were operating with disturbing efficiency. "Admiral Zexathara," Chen said calmly, "we have analyzed your command structure and tactical capabilities. Your fleet is operating at 12% efficiency due to network disruption. You have lost 43 ships to our 91. However, our losses were planned and intentional. Yours were not?" Zexathara could barely speak. "How? How is this possible? You are a primitive species with inferior technology." Chen smiled sadly. "Admiral, you made the same mistake every bully makes. You assumed that being stronger meant you were smarter. You never considered that a weaker opponent might be more creative." "What do you want?" Zexathara asked. "Simple," Chen replied. "Leave our system, return to your empire, tell them what happened here, and never come back." "And if we refuse?" Chen's expression hardened. Then we show you what we've really been building while you were distracted by our small fleet. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Human ships were emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. They had been concealed inside asteroid fields, behind planetary bodies, and even within the solar corona itself. There were thousands of them. But these were not the crude, converted vessels that had fought the first battle. These were purpose-built warships constructed with reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology and improved with human innovations. They were smaller than Zephyrian ships, but far more numerous, and armed with weapons that matched Empire standards. While you were fighting our decoy fleet, Chen explained, our real forces were studying your technology and building ships designed specifically to kill yours. Every tactic you used, every weapon you fired, every defensive measure you employed, has been analyzed and countered. Zexathara felt the collective shock of his remaining commanders through the throne network. The humans had not been trying to win the first battle. They had been gathering intelligence while preparing for the real war. You have 10 minutes to withdraw, Chen continued. After that, we will demonstrate why picking a fight with humanity was the worst mistake your empire ever made. As if to emphasize the point, one of the new human warships fired a single shot at an asteroid. The asteroid simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. Admiral Zexathara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Thousands of human warships surrounded his fleet from every direction. The primitive species that should have been conquered in hours had somehow built a navy that matched the Empire's finest technology. Admiral, his science officer reported with a trembling voice, the new human ships are scanning us with sensor arrays more advanced than our own. They appear to be analyzing our remaining defenses in real time. Through the throne network, Zexathara felt the fear of his fellow commanders. Captain Uel Oth reported that human ships were targeting his vessel's specific weak points with surgical precision. Commander Hexamara discovered that her shield frequencies had been completely mapped and countered. The humans knew everything about Zephyrian technology because they had stolen it, improved it, and turned it against its creators. Open a channel to all ships, Zexathara commanded. We withdraw immediately. All vessels retreat to jump coordinates and prepare for hyperspace. But as his fleet began to turn away from Earth, something impossible happened. The space around them began to shimmer and distort. Hyperspace jump points, which should have opened instantly, flickered and died. "Admiral," his navigation officer said in panic, "we cannot enter hyperspace. Something is interfering with our jump drives." On his screen, Admiral Chen's face appeared with what humans called a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm afraid we can't let you leave just yet, Admiral," Chen said calmly. "You see, while your fleet was busy fighting our decoy ships, our scientists were analyzing your hyperspace technology. We've discovered something very interesting about your jump drives." Chen gestured to someone off-screen. "Dr. Sarah Kim, our lead physicist, would like to explain." A human female with dark hair and tired eyes appeared next to Chen. She held a device that looked suspiciously like a modified Zephyrian hyperspace generator. "Hello, Admiral," Dr. Kim said in a voice that was both polite and terrifying. "Your hyperspace technology relies on quantum field manipulation to create artificial wormholes. Very elegant. However, it has a critical weakness." She activated the device in her hands. The space around the Zephyrian fleet shimmered more violently. "Your jump drives all operate on the same base frequency," Dr. Kim continued. "This allows your throne network to coordinate fleet movements across the galaxy. But it also means that anyone who can generate an inverse quantum field on that frequency can prevent hyperspace jumps within a large area." Zexathara felt ice-cold. Fear flowed through his body. "You have trapped us here." "Temporarily," Chen agreed. "We don't want to destroy you, Admiral. We want you to deliver a message to your empire. But first, we need to make sure that message will be taken seriously." The human admiral made a gesture, and the thousands of human warships began moving into attack formation. But they did not target the Zephyrian fleet. Instead, they aimed their weapons at empty space. "What are you targeting?" Zexathara asked with confusion. "Your throne network," Chen replied simply. Before Zexathara could ask what that meant, the human ships opened fire. But they were not shooting energy beams or missiles. They were broadcasting something. Streams of data poured from every human vessel, all targeted at the quantum communication arrays that connected the Zephyrian fleet to the galactic network. "Admiral!" his communications officer screamed. "They are attacking our network connections with some kind of data weapon. Our quantum links are being flooded with information." Zexathara watched in horror as his connection to the throne network began to flicker. The collective wisdom of the Empire, the shared consciousness that had guided Zephyrian civilization for 10,000 years, was being disrupted by human computer attacks. Through the failing network, he could hear the panic of commanders across the galaxy. Admiral Kreshevar reported that his fleet's navigation systems were displaying false star charts. Commander Eviloth found that her weapons were targeting her own ships. Captain Zealoth's entire command structure had been replaced with human. Music and something called cat videos. "What have you done?" Zexathara demanded. Dr. Kim smiled, and it was the most frightening expression Zexathara had ever seen on any living being. "We've hacked your throne network," she said simply. "Your quantum communication system is very impressive, but it was designed by a species that thinks in ordered, logical patterns. Humans don't think that way." She held up a small device covered in blinking lights. "This little computer contains the collective work of every hacker, programmer, and computer scientist on Earth. They spent the last 3 days analyzing your network protocols while you were fighting our decoy fleet." The device beeped softly, and Zexathara felt the throne network convulse like a living thing in pain. "Your network expects rational, predictable inputs," Dr. Kim continued. "Commands that follow logical structure and obey established protocols. But we're not sending rational inputs. We're sending chaos." "Chaos?" Zexathara asked. "Human chaos," Chen explained. "Random data streams, contradictory orders, impossible mathematical equations, and recursive logic loops that have no solution. Your network is trying to process information that cannot be processed." Across the galaxy, the throne network began to collapse. The quantum links that connected every Zephyrian commander started broadcasting conflicting information. Ships received orders to be in multiple locations simultaneously. Weapon systems calculated target solutions for enemies that could not exist. Navigation computers plotted courses through solid matter. "The beautiful thing about chaos," Dr. Kim said cheerfully, "is that it spreads. Your network shares all information instantly, which means our chaos is reaching every Zephyrian ship, station, and command post in the galaxy right now." Zexathara felt the network tearing itself apart around him. 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge and experience were being corrupted by human randomness. The collective wisdom of the Empire was drowning in incomprehensible data. "Stop this," he begged. "You will destroy everything." "We're not destroying anything," Chen replied. "We're just introducing a little disorder into your perfect system. The same disorder that makes humans unpredictable in battle also makes our computers very good at breaking other people's computers." The final blow came when Dr. Kim activated another device. This one sent a signal that somehow reached through the quantum links to every major throne network hub across the galaxy. "This is our masterpiece," she said proudly. "A virus that doesn't destroy data. It randomizes it. Every piece of information in your network will still exist, but it will be mixed up with every other piece of information. Your star charts will show fleet positions. Your tactical manuals will contain recipes for human food. Your weapons specifications will be replaced with human poetry." The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian commanders, lost contact with their fleets as the network began transmitting meaningless garbage. Ships that had operated as single units for centuries suddenly found themselves unable to communicate with vessels just a few kilometers away. Without the network, the Zephyrian Empire ceased to function. Individual ships and bases became isolated islands in space, cut off from the collective intelligence that had guided them for millennia. 10 minutes, Chen announced, checking a device on his wrist. That's how long it took us to bring down your empire. Not bad for a primitive species. Zexathera stared at the humans in shock. How? How is this possible? You want to know the secret? Chen asked. The reason you lost so quickly? He leaned forward, and his expression became serious. You built a perfect system, Chen said. Efficient, logical, predictable. Every part connected to every other part. No waste, no chaos, no disorder. It was beautiful. He paused, then continued with quiet intensity. But perfection is fragile. When every part depends on every other part, breaking just one piece breaks everything. Your network was so perfectly integrated that we only needed to corrupt one small section to destroy the whole thing. Dr. Kim nodded enthusiastically. Plus, your system was designed by people who think alike. Same species, same culture, same basic thought patterns. You never considered what would happen if someone who thought completely differently tried to break your system. Humans, Chen added, think very differently. Around them, the hyperspace interference field began to fade. The human ships were backing away, giving the Zephyrian fleet room to leave. You're letting us go? Zexathara asked. Of course, Chen replied. We need you to carry our message back to what's left of your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is under human protection now, and tell them that if they ever threaten another species the way they threatened us, we will finish what we started today. As Zexathara's fleet limped away from Earth, he realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans had not just defeated the Empire, they had shattered the very concept of imperial dominance through technological superiority. In 10 minutes, they had shown that intelligence and creativity could overcome any advantage in raw power. The age of human chaos had begun. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Zexathara sat in his command chair aboard a makeshift space station orbiting a dead world. Around him, the remnants of the Zephyrian Empire struggled to survive in a galaxy that no longer made sense. The throne network was gone. 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge and coordination had been replaced by chaos and confusion. Zephyrian fleets wandered through space without purpose, their commanders unable to contact each other or receive orders from Central Command. Many ships had simply stopped moving, their crews paralyzed by the loss of the collective intelligence that had guided their entire civilization. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we are receiving another transmission from the humans. Zexathara closed his 4 eyes in exhaustion. For weeks, human ships had been appearing throughout former Empire territory. But they were not conquering worlds or enslaving populations. Instead, they were doing something far more disturbing. They were offering help. Put it on screen, he said wearily. A human face appeared, but it was not Admiral Chen this time. This was a different human. A female with silver hair and kind eyes. Behind her, Zexathara could see what looked like a mix of human and Zephyrian technology working together. Admiral Zexathara, the human said in a gentle voice, I am Ambassador Sarah Martinez from the United Earth Coalition. We've been looking for you. What do you want, human? Zexathara asked tiredly. To help, Martinez replied simply. We know your people are struggling since the network collapse. We have medical supplies, food synthesizers, and technical assistance available if you need them. Zexathara laughed bitterly. Why would you help us? We came to destroy your species. Because that's what humans do, Martinez said with a sad smile. We help people who need help, even if they were our enemies. Especially if they were our enemies. This made no sense to Zexthara. In his experience, victorious species always enslaved or eliminated the defeated. The strong ruled the weak. That was the natural order of the galaxy. Yet the humans seemed determined to break every rule of civilized conquest. "We don't want your help," he said finally. "That's your choice," Martinez agreed. "But the offer remains open. If your people change their minds, they can contact any human ship or station. We'll be there." The transmission ended, leaving Zexthara alone with his thoughts. Through his broken connection to other Zephyrian survivors, he knew that similar offers were being made throughout the galaxy. The humans were approaching every isolated group, every struggling colony, every desperate fleet with the same message: "We want to help." Some Zephyrian commanders had accepted human assistance. Captain Yul Oth had allowed human medical teams to treat a plague outbreak on his ship. Commander Hex Mara had accepted human food supplies when her crew faced starvation. Each time, the humans provided exactly what they promised and asked for nothing in return. This generosity was more frightening than any weapon. Zexthara could understand conquest, slavery, or destruction, but kindness from a superior force made no sense. It violated every principle of galactic politics he had learned in 3 centuries of service. A soft chime indicated another incoming transmission. This time it was Captain Melthara, formerly of the dreadnought Infinite Majesty. His ship had been captured during the battle, but the humans had eventually released both vessel and crew unharmed. "Admiral," Melthara said, his voice filled with confusion, "I need to report something unusual. The humans who captured my ship spent 3 weeks studying our technology and crew psychology. They interviewed every member of my staff about Zephyrian culture, history, and social structure." "Were you tortured for information?" Zexthara asked. "No, sir. They were curious. They asked about our families, our beliefs, our fears, and hopes. They seemed genuinely interested in understanding who we are as people, not just as enemies. This was equally disturbing. Enemy intelligence gathering focused on military capabilities and strategic weaknesses. The humans were studying Zephyrian culture as if they actually cared about Zephyrian well-being." "Sir," Melthara continued, "there's something else. The humans have been contacting species throughout the galaxy, not just former Empire subjects, but independent civilizations, neutral worlds, even species we've never heard of. They're organizing some kind of gathering." "What kind of gathering?" "They call it a Galactic Council, a meeting where every species can send representatives to discuss forming a voluntary alliance for mutual benefit and protection." Zexthara felt a chill run through his body. The humans were not content with defeating the Empire. They were rebuilding galactic civilization, according to their own bizarre principles. Over the following weeks, reports filtered in from across the galaxy. Human ships were everywhere, but they were not behaving like conquerors. Instead, they were acting like what they called diplomats, representatives whose job was to talk with other species and find ways to cooperate. The humans had shared their advanced technology freely with any species that asked for it. They had helped former Empire worlds establish independent governments. They had even provided Zephyrian refugees with new homes on planets that volunteered to accept them. Most shocking of all, they had begun dismantling their own military fleet. The warships that had defeated the Empire in 10 minutes were being converted into exploration vessels, medical ships, and construction platforms. The humans were voluntarily reducing their own power. "Admiral," his communications officer said one day, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's addressed to you personally." Admiral Chen appeared on the screen, but he looked different now. Instead of a military uniform, he wore simple civilian clothes. His face showed the weariness of someone who had been working without rest for months. "Admiral Zexthara," Chen said formally, "I have a proposal for you and any Zephyrian survivors who are interested." "Speak," Zexthara replied. "We are establishing a new organization called the Galactic Peacekeeping Force," Chen explained. "Its purpose is to protect vulnerable species from aggression and to help resolve conflicts peacefully. We need experienced military commanders who understand how galactic warfare works. Zexathara stared at the human in disbelief. You want us to join your military? Not exactly, Chen said. We want you to help us make sure no other species goes through what your people went through. The Empire may be gone, but there are other threats out there. Pirates, raiders, rogue artificial intelligences, cosmic disasters. The galaxy needs protectors. Why would you trust former enemies with such responsibility? Chen's expression became serious. Because you know better than anyone what happens when good intentions go wrong. Your empire probably started with noble goals, bringing order to chaos, protecting the weak, spreading civilization, but somewhere along the way it became about control and dominance. He leaned forward. We don't want to make the same mistakes. We need people who will tell us when we're starting to become the thing we're fighting against. Former enemies make the best advisors because they have no reason to flatter us. The proposal was unprecedented. The humans were offering their former enemies positions of authority in their new galactic order, not as servants or prisoners, but as equal partners in building something better. What would you want us to do? Zexathara asked cautiously. Help us design a system that prevents any one species from dominating the galaxy, Chen replied. Your people spent 10,000 years ruling through force. You understand the temptations of power and the dangers of absolute authority. We need that knowledge. Over the following days, Zexathara found himself considering the offer seriously. The humans had proven they could destroy any opposition, yet they were choosing to share power instead of hoarding it. They had defeated the most powerful empire in galactic history, then immediately began reducing their own military strength. It was either the most enlightened approach to governance ever conceived, or the most elaborate trap in history. Captain Melthera was the first to accept the human offer. Within weeks, he was working alongside human engineers to design new peacekeeping vessels that combined the best of both technologies. Other Zephyrian commanders followed, drawn by the promise of purpose in a galaxy that had left them behind. Zexathara made his decision on the day he received a report from Commander Hexmara. She had been working with human diplomats to establish the new Galactic Council, and her message contained a single stunning fact. Over 300 species had agreed to join the human alliance, not because they were conquered or coerced, but because they wanted to be part of something better. The humans had accomplished in 3 months what the Empire had failed to achieve in 10,000 years. They had united the galaxy through cooperation instead of fear. Ambassador Martinez, Zexathara said into his communication system, this is Admiral Zexathara of the former Zephyrian Empire. I accept your offer to join the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. The human's face appeared on his screen, and her smile was genuine and warm. Welcome aboard, Admiral, she said. The galaxy needs good people like you. As his ship changed course toward Earth, Zexathara reflected on what the humans had accomplished. They had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it. They had not enslaved other species. They had shown them a better way to live together.